All right, everybody, we're gonna finish up this painting. Thank you guys for marathon painting. You guys did such an awesome job. And I know it was fast and furious. So we're gonna do our finishing touches, and you get to do them at a slower pace. But we're gonna go through and we're gonna tweak as well. So I'm gonna finish up what we did, and then I'm gonna tweak other parts. So I'm gonna start over here in this part of the painting. And I'm gonna use my Payne's Gray. And come in here. And there's a cobalt teal, like it's where the handle is joining onto the glass, which is a really pretty area. So we don't want to lose that. So we're going to go right around it. I like having it's a building that's in here, and for some reason it reminds me of Italy or something, those colors. So it's kind of like we went on a little vacation in this painting. In reality, it's my backyard. So you're in Japan. It's still a vacation. So with glass, you have distortions, and this little like blip where it comes, you know, up and out like that, that is one of the things that's going to make it really say, okay, this is glass. And we're going to do it here again and have a little blip. So that's one of those areas that's really going to help us see that it's a distortion in the glass. And I just continued a little line just so we see, and I may be out of line here. Let's see, it's got to be part of the top of that, so we may have to fix that. I'm going to go in with our Quin Gold. Deepen that color and shape up. And then come over here. I want this a little bit lighter over here. I'm just going to continue that all the way down, just so we unify those shapes. All right, while we have Quin on our brush, I'm just going to go over, touch other quinacridone areas. I don't want it too yellow over here, but I do want that yellow to bounce around. So we'll be adding some down here, especially when we take the masking off. Okay, so we have some Quin in here we didn't get in earlier. There's a lot of masking there, and then there's some Quin in there that we gotta do after we get the masking off. I was just using the pigment that was already there, and I'm just cleaning up some lines. I'm gonna have to clean up some things over here where the masking is. And I got, in my haste to get the background done, I think I got a little in. I'm using my scrubber brush to push it back out. Okay. Payne's Gray. I'm just going to darken up and darken up in here. Still Payne's Gray. I'm going to add a little Quinn right down here. I think I did that before. Maybe I did Old Undersea. Okay. Now we're going to dig back into some of these more complicated areas. Get my cobalt teal out. First I'm going to clean up a little bit there. I'm just cleaning up, adding a little more cobalt teal down here. Okay. I have prolonged long enough. I have to go back into the hard areas. Just rounding my handle up. All right. Okay. So I'll come back up and start where we stopped. I'm going to take some ultramarine blue and I'm going to throw it on top of that Payne's Gray that we did a second ago. And then a little more Payne's Gray. Okay, and cobalt teal blue. Just gonna start mapping some of these. We've got masking fluid in here, but we're getting some more values in so that we have some light, some dark, some in between. Okay. So here's this shape that we already have in. We went around that white highlight, just kind of figuring out where I am. That goes up. Here's a... Okay. So I have a mask shape right there. Okay, we're gonna go with Payne's Gray and lay in some of these shapes. Okay, we have to kind of figure out where we are. So I have this shape to help identify where I am, and then I'm going to throw in some Payne's Gray right here. That helps me know the back of this shape, that brighter shape, and then there, where you have bright, you gotta have dark. And then it comes up, there's masking, and then it comes up like that. Or like mapping this in with our lighter color. And then there's kind of a brighter highlight in between. So I wanna drop a little because I know that's where that goes. And then I'm gonna come back over here. All right, now I need to figure out this shape in here. So here's some of those like little squiggly shapes right in there, and then there's a dark right behind it. And let's see, it doesn't connect right now. There's that. Kind of an arrow shape. Dark, okay. All right, I'm gonna come over here. So here's a dark shape we know inside this handle. Then I come over here and I have some masked out areas. Yay for masking. It helps keep you on track. You're like, oh, that's what that is. And then it comes around. Okay, so there's kind of a, I'm in Japan, so I'm gonna say that's a Mount Fuji shape. Because Mount Fuji does not have a pointed mountaintop, it's a volcano. So. There's another little dark area. Okay. Now the top of that Mount Fuji shape is kind of green. So I'm going to use my undersea green. It's like green on one side, blue on the other. So I'm going to do my undersea green here and then switch to my cobalt. Pulling from pigment around it so it's smooth. And then I'm going to grab my cobalt teal. Okay, so the cobalt teal on that side. And then it's sitting on like a, we're gonna do Quin Gold in a second down there when it dries, and then we'll dull it down a little bit. Okay, let's come over here and see what little shapes we can get in here. Like I said, some of these like rectangular shapes that remind me of like ice cubes. We just need to get some shapes and interest going on in them. So I got some cobalt there. I'll switch to ultramarine blue. And drop a little of that in. Okay, and then this kind of comes around and down. So this is still that ultramarine blue. It might have picked up some turquoisey somewhere. All right, I'm gonna let that dry. The more I mess with that right now, it's gonna be too wet. So I'm gonna come down and beef up my saucer colors. I think I kind of lost the highlight, so I'm gonna pull get a piece of paper towel, pull a highlight that I kind of lost. That kind of went into here. If you don't have a brush like this, you can just use your round brush and you just kind of get it wet and then just pull with paper towel. Or if you have any kind of scrubber brush, you can use that as well. I do like this little Rosemary & Company Eradicator. This is the small Eradicator. I do like it. I was gifted this brush in a workshop from a student, and I use it quite a bit. Adding a little ultramarine in here. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna start mapping some shapes out. And I just painted on here, so I gotta be careful what I'm doing. So I'm gonna pull that back to round. And then there is so it's kind of like where the handle attaches here. And then this area. Okay, so that was cobalt teal, and it was over some ultramarine. So I'm gonna add in a little ultramarine at the top, and maybe a little cobalt teal. And it's gonna get dark at the bottom, but if I do too much, it might bleed. Or I might mess my shape up like it just did. All right, I'll just thin it out and go with it. All right, so I'm gonna try adding a little Payne's Gray down at the bottom because I want it to blend in, but I also don't want to lose all my pretty blue at the top. And so I'm gonna start here, and I do see some green, so I'm gonna start with the Payne's Gray, and then I'm gonna switch to the undersea green. Okay, and then there's kind of a yellow. Let's see if we can get it to do it. There's like a yellow dot right in the middle. So I'm gonna see if I drop a little dot of Quinn Gold in there, if it'll do it, or if we gotta pull it out. All right. So let me check things here. So if I go from here over, all right, so I'm gonna get into my ultramarine blue. right down here. And then switch to cobalt teal blue. This is still my cobalt teal. I'm kind of mapping this shape in. I'm going to switch to undersea green. And then a little Payne's gray. See, we're letting that water do the work for us. Look how pretty it's doing, some pretty stuff. And then I'm going to add a little cobalt teal at the top. Look how pretty. It's like the ocean or something. I love it. Okay. I'm going with a cobalt teal in here. Okay, so here's that, here's that. I know it's really confusing. So sometimes when it's really confusing, you just make it pretty. As long as it's pretty, it works. I'm gonna switch to undersea green. Just, that was too much. Just throw a little in just to have that greeny color over here. Okay. And I'm gonna scrub out a little, there's kind of a bright kind of highlight area over here. Just scrubbing it out a little. There's a masked area right there, but it's kind of bright. So squint. So when I squint, I see this isn't dark enough. So I'm going to do that with ultramarine. I probably shouldn't do it right now because I just messed. I'm going to go up high. I just got that area rubbed out. So if I get too far down in there, I'm going to just counteract the work I just did. So I'm going to try to go up high enough. I still got in there a little bit. Okay, so squint. See if we're in the right value everywhere. Looking pretty good. All right, so there's some more things happening in this Quin Gold area. So I'm going to go back into my Payne's Gray. Really, I see some Quin Burnt Orange in here, but it's not on the list. But if you wanted to dig into a brown or a Quin Burnt Orange, you could add it in now in this area. But if you introduce it there, you got to come and carry it out in some other areas. So just remember, if you introduce a color in one area, it's got to be sprinkled in at least 3 areas. In a triangle is best. Things look better in the triangle. All right, so I'm just kind of putting some lines. This is kind of like windows and doors of a building. You would probably not know that if I didn't say it, but I know that that's what that is. But I'm basically just making sure we have some cool shapes. Something of interest up there. This is darker when I squint. Gotta do a lot of squinting, a lot of stepping back, a lot of squinting. All right. Get into my ultramarine over here. I just use my finger. Sometimes your fingers are easiest and quickest to wipe out an area. All right. So I feel like we're getting there. I'll be able to take off masking soon. First, we're going to do our background and get it as dark as we want it, but we're getting there. Oh, and here. Back to Quinn Gold. This is dry down here, so I'm going to throw in that Quinn Gold in here. Ooh, way too much. Pull that out. Back the truck up. And I'm going to just pull it up into the Mount Fuji shape. It's not really a Fuji anymore. Okay. We have to make sure we get, once that masking's off, we get gold on this side to balance that out. Okay, I think we need more color over here. All right, squinting, looking. Squinting, looking, doing checks. This is me squinting and looking. It should be you squinting and looking and seeing where it needs to be on your paper, your composition. Okay, so now we're going to work on our handle a little bit more. Probably not too much, but a little. Ultramarine blue. Pop that in there. Okay, a little Payne's gray. All right, so now last tweaks. I'm rinsing, so I drop some pigment in. I'm just rinsing, pulling from what I've got, just getting it where it needs to be. This side's kind of light. And a little ultramarine. That's pretty. Okay. Ultramarine. Payne's Gray. Kind of the wrong swoop there. I'm just fixing it. Okay. I'm going to do the background, and then I'll do any final tweaks after we do the background. Take the masking off. Clean up. Like I see an area I got just cleaning up an area I got a little dark into that I didn't need to. Okay, so I'm going straight in with my Indigo Sepia. This is where you're doing your artistic license. Do you want a gradation to a dark or just a solid dark? Easiest is a solid. Most dramatic is a solid. So I'm going to do a solid, but I would be curious to do the other one just to see if I liked it. So I'm outlining this time with my number 4, taking a little more time. And you could do this with a bigger round, if you have a bigger round. I don't like that one. Okay. There's a number 16. Let's see. My only issue with using bigger brushes and switching is the bigger brushes hold more water, especially Kolinsky's. These are a synthetic, but the bigger brushes hold more water, so your paper gets wetter. And consequently, takes longer to get a really dramatic dark background. But you get less brush strokes. So but if you're using that cosmetic brush like I was showing you, that does help get rid of some of those brush strokes. And I forgot to mask my name out, so I'll have to sign on top. You can use your ruling pen to sign with you have to do a pretty saturated amount of paint. And I normally always sign my name in pencil, and then I have my guideline that I can go over with my paintbrush or ruling pen with the paint in it. I feel like this painting lends itself to cobalt turquoise because that is a more opaque color, and it's pretty, and it's in the painting. You would never want to do like white. First of all, I don't use white paint, period, but you never want your signature to stick out, and it shouldn't be more than one value away from the background, so it needs to be pretty a color that's not standing out too much. Because we've used cobalt turquoise throughout this composition, it's a color that would be fine to use. Now, let's say you wanted to use red or something. It's not anywhere, so your name is going to stick out if you did it in red. And I would think about it before I did it. I like to keep it in the company of what's in the actual painting. But some people do their name always in one color. But I would say most of those people normally paint with that color in kind of a limited palette. And your name should be conservative. It should not be the first thing you see when you look at a painting. I just was in a virtual reception for a show, and the judge called out someone. They were an award winner, but the judge said that that painting would have had a higher award if the name had not been so prominent. And I've judged shows, and I'm going to tell you, some people have some wacky ideas about where signatures go. So be conservative with your signature. That's not what you want to stand out. Okay, I'm just using that flat brush to smooth things out very lightly. Okay, add some more pigment over here, and then we can clean this side up. I stopped and did that because my paint was drying. And I wanted to smooth it out while it was still workable. It's not hard on this size painting to get a pretty flat wash in your background with these colors. The bigger you get, the harder it is. I normally like to have some kind of stopping points in my backgrounds so you can do like small areas of flat washes. But this is just a solid background. And generally, it's not compositionally a good idea to have your subject square, you know, like right in the middle. But this is a painting that lends itself to that. So I thought it was fine in this instance. Even if I painted this as a large painting, I think I would still do it in the center like this. Even though our brains like asymmetry, this composition lends itself to it. But a judge might think differently. Okay, here's my small flat. All right, I'm gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna take the masking off.